You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We love MotoGP. Hello and welcome to Missed Apex MotoGP Podcast. This is a show put together by MotoGP fans pretending to be experts. We aim to have a race review show ready for a midweek commute. We may just be punters, but we love to talk. So then, testing has concluded ahead of the 2026 season. With the first race less than a week away, let's discuss who's looking hot and who's not. As ever, I am your host, Kyle Power, and today I'm joined by some fellow MotoGP enthusiasts. It's the tyre-obsessed trumpeter and the not-so-new fan, Matt Trumpets. How's it going, Matt?
Yeah, it's going great. I feel bad that my brand new fan smell is wearing off here in the podcast a little bit. But, you know, I've been around a while. Actually, I'm really looking forward to this because it's just rampant baseless speculation. And that's my favorite thing that I don't get to do other places. So I'm enjoying this. I have many wild theories to share.
Okay, well, we can do some speculation with some fact as well. We can talk about how.
Oh, no. I shall not be shackled by your reality, Mr. Kyle.
Okay, that's cool. Talking about fact, we have an actual Northerner with us. It's our token Northerner, Danny Henney, and a Marc Marquez convert of late and a long-standing MotoGP fan. How's it going, Danny?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Kyle. Glad to be back. Testing's been interesting, so looking forward to talking about it and seeing what everyone thinks.
Absolutely. Well, there's been loads of crazy news going on in the background that we could probably warrants an entire show in itself. But I think probably the best way to go about this pre-season and maybe our preview for the season ahead is let's look at each team individually. Obviously, testing is now finished. We're recording like a day after testing is finished, and the first race is this weekend. So let's go through each team and see what the score is, basically. So, yeah, let's get into it. So let's start with, obviously, the reigning champions, Ducati. Looks like a pretty strong start to them, but the question marks, guys, were can Pecco actually feel happy and solid again, and what sort of specifications are they going to be choosing, Matt?
Well, this is the thing. Ducati had the best bike 2 years ago. They had the fastest bike, but not always the best bike last season. So have they found a happy medium? And complicated by the fact that their star rider isn't really in complete shape to give them the feedback they need. So it's interesting. You're picking from your bin of parts from 24 to what you've come up with for this season. And it seems like the consensus may be that the newer stuff isn't what makes the riders happiest, even if the engineers think it's fastest.
Yeah, I think Ducati are looking all right. I think Matt's trying to say. So, yeah, I think they're looking good. The riders are at different levels, I'd say. Like you say, Mark still seems to be a bit banged up, suffering from a bit of sickness in the test as well. So he'll be there or thereabouts. He always will be, especially on the top bike. I think the interesting bit is Bagnaia is looking quite good so far. So can he turn his form around going into the season and strike early on?
Yeah, so Mark hasn't been full fitness, and Matt made a good point there. Like, he hasn't really been there to give the input into this bike, which I think a lot of fans and some of the conspiracy theorists and the tinfoil fans would be sort of said is probably a very good thing for Ducati, because Mark has a history of wrecking bikes, of getting on them and can't develop them, which I personally don't think is that true. But it's been interesting because he hasn't had that many laps on it, and after all of his interviews you've seen after testing, he's looked very tired, very, very tired. And this weekend he's had a stomach bug. He's had 3 crashes. He's been a typical Marquez sort of a bumpy roller coaster ride sort of pre-season, really, but he's looking fairly quick and fairly happy. But what has been really interesting, Matt, is like some of the tech choices with the bikes.
Well, yeah, particularly with the aerodynamics. The riders seem to be preferring the 24 Aero, but no one has made. Obviously, we won't know their choices till we get to the races. And I think you had mentioned in our little pre-show chat that Morbidelli was stuck with what they're calling a 25 bike, but it's sort of a hodgepodge as well. We don't know really. The big black box is always the engine. because you
Yeah.
don't know what they're calling it a thing doesn't mean that it is a thing. If they call
Yeah,
it
so
the
he's stuck
26,
with the 24, hasn't he? So he's stuck with the 24 inverted commas, which
right?
is being labeled as a 25, but it's a 24 with probably some 25 bits stuck onto it.
Yeah, or not, because apparently there are no real rules about that. Really, it's what the factory calls it. That's what it is according to FIM, I suppose. But really, is just a continuation of the argument we had last season, which is was the 24 bike overall the peak, easiest to ride. Each rider gets as close to the 100% optimization as possible, and 25 and who knows what 26 will simply bring higher peaks, but also potentially lower valleys in return.
I'm not 100% sure because it's been a while now, but weren't Alex on the 24 last season?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, which could be going into Morbidelli's favour as well, looking at that, how easy it was to jump on, consistent. It's a bike they know well. So I wonder whether that's coming into his thoughts as well going into it, because the 25 was definitely tricky, even in Mark's hands, and Pecco just showed how much of a struggle he had as well.
Well, I think that's good you say that, because I think this year with the 26, and whenever we say the GP 24, 25, 26, whatever, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, because I don't think even Ducati, only really the people within Ducati know which exact spec bikes they all are. But yeah, I think the 24 could maybe hamper Morbidelli this year, maybe because it looks like with the GP26, the new one, I think they've taken the GP25, stuck some of their more favourable GP24 bits on it, minus sans the engine, obviously, which they can't change the crankcases for. But I think they've come up with a new rear ride height device, which Pecco, this might be his silver bullet. We said that a lot last year, that he's looking for the silver bullet, but he seems an awful lot happier. So I think they've made the GP26, they've got a performance of the 25, but made it a bit more usable. So other people, rather than Mark Marquez can actually use it. That's looking pretty handy, Danny. So hopefully Pecco is right there.
Yeah, and I was listening to a different podcast earlier where they were saying around, I know, I daren't say the name either, but they were saying about that apparently it was the ride height device that was hampering Pecco last season, and it was kind of hush-hush. And then he kind of come out and said, yeah, that's what my hindrance into corner entry was. And then Alex Marquez pretty much confirmed that in the interview by saying, well, if Pecco spoke about it, we're obviously allowed to talk about it now. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. As I say, he's looked quite good in the test so far, and has that cured his mysterious corner entry phase?
Well, I just am going to jump in real quick and remind you all of the race where his ride height device was broken and he was insanely fast. It was at one of the last couple of races of the year. He had a broken ride height device and he was turning in really fast times. Sorry, I don't recall the specific one. Ride height is what the crew chief will tell him it is, but only Ducati know for sure. Everything they have changed, and yeah, there may be a little more under that particular hood, but I think in general that was a major source of the issues for him.
Yeah, and it'd be really good to see, because I don't know, maybe not everyone's that convinced. I mean, it's hard to be convinced after what we saw last year with Pecco that his pace is actually genuine. But think back to this time last year, he was in all sorts of trouble, and he was being very vocal about the constant issues he was having, which we now know, I think, was chasing this feeling that he had with the GP24, and we knew it was almost impossible for him to have with the GP25. And he kept going on about he couldn't get this feeling, and he was feeling all lost and out at sea. We haven't had any of that this year from him. He seemed happy. His pace, I mean, I think he was P4 overall in the fastest times, about the headline times, but his race sims were looking really competitive. So it looks like Pecco's back. And then while we're on Ducati, your man Alex, Danny, we haven't really spoke about him much. He's solidly been getting on with it. He binned it on the final day of testing, so we didn't really get a representative long run data out of him. But do you think he's going to be as good as he was last year?
Yes, that's why I put him second in my prediction again. He's probably been the fastest Ducati in the test. Looking at how they got on, he's looking in good form. Strong winter again going into the season. I think he'll have, similar to last season, I think he'll have really strong performances early on and then potentially wane off as the season goes on. But yeah, hopefully he can build on that consistency he did last season and get a few more wins. It'd be nice to see a different Marquez on the top step a few times.
Well, I like this because I'm going to agree with Danny a lot here, as I did in my predictions. He stands a real chance, depending upon how well Mark is healed and how healthy he stays across the season, of being the top rider at Ducati. Pecco is coming back from a nightmare. He says the bike is there, but we've definitely seen Alex at the top of the sheets over the test at times. And everything he learned last season, it should just be more so this season. So this really is a chance for him to make his own, put his own stamp on Ducati. And I, for one, am looking forward to it.
The only thing I will say on Alex, and I've just remembered now, I watched an interview with Marc Marquez yesterday. I don't think it was long after he became world champion. He was talking about battling with Alex over the season and the fact they both were going for wins in races. And the only weakness I'd see with him, Mark was kind of saying they got home and had a discussion together to say, look, we've got two options here. We can go hell for leather at each other and potentially take each other out and, both lose the title, or we can race respectful and, enjoy going about doing it. When you read between the lines on that, that was, I'm faster, so please don't make any silly mistakes. And he didn't say that, but you could tell that's what he really meant. That is the only weakness I would say Alex has got. Understandably, he loves his brother, which is a great thing to have. But
it's his big bro, isn't it? He can't do anything bad.
Yeah, he needs to kind of go, I hear you, bro, but you've had your time. This is my time. And if he changes that, I think he'd become a real serious contender. But while it's still a bit of a loving, and I know the brothers, you don't want them to fall out, obviously, but while he's still got that ultimate respect, he's obviously always going to be in Mark's shadow, unfortunately. So he's got to try and break that, and fingers crossed he can.
Yeah, well, he will be maybe in the shadow, but he has equal opportunity and an equal bike this year, unlike last year, which, well, depending on who you talk to, reckons he had a bike advantage last year or a disadvantage. You don't really know. Another Ducati rider we haven't mentioned is Gin Antonio in the VR46 camp. He also has a factory bike, so there's 4 factory bikes on the grid this year, just with we've got Aldeguer, who's obviously he's broken his femur. He's missing this race and was being replaced by Pirro. So he's missed all of his testing. So he's massively on the back foot. And we've got Morbidelli, who's still on the GP24. So they'll be probably cold GP25s, but it'd be interesting to see what spec Aldeguer is given. I guess it will be whatever Morbidelli chooses, because he has had no running whatsoever. So that's going to be interesting to see. But there was a bit of news before we kind of started recording today on Monday, that this is going to be a nice segue into our next team, that Pecco is looking very likely that my prediction was right, and some other people's predictions were right, that Pecco Bagnaia looks like he's going to sign for Aprilia. And boy, aren't Aprilia looking pretty handy in testing? So Bezzecchi and Agura were the fastest two in testing, and their simulations were mightily fast as well. Matt, could we be looking at an Agura podium for round 1?
I would love that. He came on very strong at the beginning of last season after testing in the same way. I think it's clearly a track he likes, and by the times he's put up, he's also completely recovered from the multiple horrible crashes that he suffered. It's a question of keeping the bike upright. And really, if you look at his season overall, whether or not he can put the time in the time attack in qualifying, that would seem to be where he struggled the most, even when he'd be faster in races and he'd race very well. Putting the benchmark time in when it really counted at the end of the season was the weakness. He's done it in testing. He looks really fast. If there's any bike that's going to compete with Ducati directly, everyone agrees it is the Aprilia. So yeah, you've put your finger on it. And I think with Aldeguer injured and coming back, he has a real chance to shine as the bright star of last year's rookie entries.
I think Aprilia looking pretty fine form at the minute, aren't they? If you look at the timesheets and how they did in the testing. What I do have to say, though, is what a difference 12 months makes for Bez. We were talking about him last season. still a bit hot-headed. How's he going to get on? Is he going to be overshadowed by Martin when the season starts, etc., etc.? And he just got better and better as the season went on. The bike seemed to get better and better, and some of his rides towards the end of the season were, no other word, but dominating. Absolutely made everyone else look quite silly. So, yes, you could argue Mark weren't really there, but, he did a few races when Mark was there. So I think he's really stepped up to be the team leader, I'd say, Bezzecchi. He's impressed me a lot. I was a big fan beforehand, but I think he's really grasped that opportunity to kind of say, no, Jorge Martin might come as world champion, but this is my team now. The team's following me, and this is the direction we're going to go. And currently, he's backing it up. I can't knock him. He goes out on track. He's fast. Race simulations look good. You wouldn't really usually say it's a track for Aprilia with a big long straight, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going at the minute. It sounds like they're the favourites.
Here's the thing that strikes me. If you think about last season, Aprilia showed up and they were behind. They spent half the season just catching up. But unlike every other team save Ducati, they've walked into this test more or less exactly where they were at the end of last season. And Ducati and Aprilia are the only two teams I see doing this. The other interesting thing is Bezzecchi had made some comments. Because Martin was so injured and out last season, the whole of his testing has really been about just getting him and the bike to agree with each other. And he's very happy. And we all know that he's fast and he seems mostly, if not entirely, healed. I guess we'll find out when the racing really starts. But Bezzecchi has been essentially doing double duty because of that. Martin's input has very little to do with anything that happened last season. And he's mostly been focused solely on himself and the time. Bezzecchi has really been the one developing this bike and providing the input, which is, I think, maybe good for him. But also, you can see that I think gets under his skin a little bit. Like, oh, he's a world champion. Why am I having to do twice the grunt work here while he just gets to go play on his bike and be happy?
Yeah, he's probably looking over it. He's probably being paid 3 times what I am as well.
Yeah.
And he's not even turned up. He's been calling sickies constantly. And I'm sitting here burning the midnight oil and grinding. But you make a good point there, because for a whole, Aprilia, it'd be great to get some input from another top rider input. And if you listen to Oxley Bomb, for instance, they've never really rated Bez that much. Like they're very honest and open, saying, and they're the guys in the know in the paddock. They're saying they don't think Bez is an alien. He's a good rider. So how good that Aprilia must be. So we've had many discussions on this pod before, like particularly Danny and I, and they're saying, do we think Martin is an actual alien? Or is he just very, very, very good? I think Martin's probably close to alien. It's really hard to tell, but we just haven't had a chance to see on this bike. And Bez has been so good. And Danny said earlier, Bez back into last season was the informed rider, was the rider. He made a few silly mistakes, but he should have won the majority of the final races, bar silly mistakes. So it's going to be fascinating to see. And Martin is happy. It's the first time I think he said he's been happy with the Aprilia and the bike. It's going to be fantastic, Danny. So Aprilia finally getting input from both riders to steer, and it'll be interesting to see if it gives Bezzecchi some sort of affirmations or confirmation to his direction, because Martin probably hasn't even given any feedback so far, like meaningful feedback. And if you did hear some feedback from him, you'd be like, well, get out of it. You've been riding the bike 5 minutes. Wait until you get some races under your belt before you give some meaningful feedback.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, he's took that step up, hasn't he? He's like won a couple of races here and there sporadically, but as we know from racing, to go from winning one race here and there is a big challenge. To go to consistent race winner is another big step. His only next step now for Bezzecchi is the challenge for the title, which fingers crossed this season he'll go for it. And having Martin there with him, even though they are slightly different, and he's kind of had a holiday for 12 months, you could say, certainly having his input into the bike should help progress it forwards. And yeah, although saying that, like you say, with his input coming in, Bezzecchi's not going to want the bike to go towards him. He's going to want to stick in his direction and probably humour Martin a little bit on some of the feedback he'll give him.
Yeah, so Trumpets, it's going to be fascinating to see. But Agura, I want to air some caution about Agura. Like Bezzecchi, we think is going to be really good. Martin, I think hopefully will claw into the top 5 by the end of the weekend. But Agura, I think he loves this track. His debut last year 4th, I think, in the sprint and 5th in the main Grand Prix. It was amazing, and we were all instantly Agura fans. I can't remember last year in the testing. I think he was reasonably quick, but not this quick immediately. This just might be a freak track for Agura.
Well, yeah. And anytime, I mean, it's his second year in MotoGP. He is still learning a lot. This is what I've come to discover, is that it is a multi-year journey to learn how to ride at that particular point of the envelope without, and still not just throw away 50+% of your chances to do well and injure yourself. So it's a pendulum. It swings back and forth. You get hurt, you're too cautious, you go nowhere. You feel good, you're too uncautious, and you wind up horribly injured again. The pendulum swings back and forth. The good riders figure out where the balance is, and they just flirt with it constantly. And that's like, you look at your Marquez, you look at your Quartararo, you look at your riders like that. They have a very fine sense of it. And yeah, all the rookies, it takes more than a season, more than 2 seasons to really know if they're going to figure it out. I mean, look at Fernandez, 5 seasons in, and finally someone made that light bulb turn on for him.
Everyone has that one track they're really good at, though, don't they? So this is probably Agura's number track. Mark's got Aragon, he's unbeatable. You know, Dovi had Austria every season. He was always up there challenging to favourite to win it. And then this could be his track. I think, like we've said, if he can do it more often at different tracks, then I'll start to get a bit more excited for him. But certainly in Thailand, he's going to be a buzz to watch. Fingers crossed he's up near the front again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other Aprilia rider on the Trackhouse, his teammate Raul Fernandez, obviously Matt mentioned there, amazing back end of last season to get out. He was 11th in testing, no real headline times, but I imagine he's trying to get his head down and just really think about the race pace. Because one thing he never struggled with was biting the screen. They call it just biting the screen and getting on with it and delivering a lap. But trying to do that lap after lap after lap of the race was always his weakness. So hopefully he's been thinking of that. So one thing we've been thinking about is all the feedback you've been giving us. And thank you. We've had some great feedback, some really cool suggestions as well. So we will be looking at implementing some of them. But if you are enjoying the show, then why not give us a like if you're watching on YouTube, or give us a favourable rating on your podcast platform of choice. If you'd like to give us some feedback or suggestions for what you'd like to hear us cover, or some content ideas for the off-season, then you can send us an email. Send your email to mrapexmoto@gmail.com. That's mrapexmoto@gmail.com. It's been quite positive so far. First 2 teams looking pretty good. Let's bring it right to the other end of the scale and look at who's looking at the party poopers at the moment in the pit lane, and that's got to be Yamaha. Oh dear, Matthew. What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, I know. All right, so let's discuss. I'm not a history buff of MotoGP because I haven't been following it long enough to go read all those articles from 1970 or whatever. But as I understand it, only once in their storied history has Yamaha actually run a V engine instead of an inline engine. And this would be like the second time they've done it. So right off the bat, they have no drawer full of old data and information and or retired engineers that can call up and pay lots of money to be consultants about this. So it's a journey of learning for the whole team, you might say. And to confuse the matter...
It's too late though. Like they've been learning, that's the thing. They need to keep hold of their star rider.
Yes, but if this is what it's going to take to compete ultimately in MotoGP, and by all I have heard and read, you're not going to be able to be competitive with these current regulations and an inline engine. The riding style is too different and essentially blocked by the way the people with the V engines ride. Well, then you have to make this switch, even if it costs you your star rider at the moment. After all, there will be more stars, and there will always be somebody out there who will come ride for your team for enough money. I would be less worried about that. What they have to do between now and next year, which let's not forget, everything resets next year. They have to understand how that engine works with their chassis and then develop the aerodynamics that will be successful with it, both this season and looking forward to what the new restrictions are next season. That's a very tall order. And
It is, but
so
you know,
no,
it's
go ahead.
MotoGP.
Yeah.
It's MotoGP. It's a tool order. Like they've been developing this in the background. It had some wild cards in the background. So why I'm talking about this mainly, sort of Danny, is like did you see Fabio Quartararo freaking out at his bike, doing like a Marc Marquez and like giving the finger to the bike, slamming the tank, and my prediction almost coming true at the start of the season. I reckon he was going to walk out in a Maverick Vinales style sort of Yamaha falling out. Danny, what must be going through Quartararo's head? It looks like he's checked out already.
I feel for the kid, I really do, because he's 26, he's in his peak years, arguably, especially if not now in the next year or two, and he's on a bike that's a disaster. And as a historic Yamaha fan of the glory years, as I always say with Yamaha and Honda going at it, it's heartbreaking. It's like the nightmare that never ends. They just, everything they try, it don't seem to get down there. The riders are not happy. I think Quartararo would rather run around the track than ride that bike at the minute with some of his body language. And it's just soul destroying. It really is to see the rider. They've got good riders on there as well. And I mean, the main team is struggling, but so's the second team as well. And it just, I can't see any positive from winter testing for them other than, Miller looked quite good now and again. That was about it. But soul destroying for the kid. It really is. And the other riders as well. But Quartararo was such a good rider. He had some amazing races. I really enjoyed watching him. He had some great battles with Marquez as well early on.
He's not dead. This isn't an obituary.
No, I know, but it might. Well, not dead, obviously, but he's nowhere, isn't he? And the most amazing thing is the poles he actually managed to bang in last season. I mean, what laps they must have been really when you look back compared to what the bike is on, because he's at such a disadvantage to the others. And for me, I think Quartararo is in that camp of, Martin, Bagnaia, Quartararo. I think he's on that level, below Marquez, but I think he's an incredible rider, and his talent at the minute is just being wasted on, unfortunately, a bike that won't perform for him, and Yamaha don't seem to know which direction to turn to.
Well, I disagree. I think Yamaha know which direction to turn to, but I think they lack the ability to turn that corner rapidly. Like it's obvious they know what they need to do, but they don't have they have no history. Like they have no file drawers stuffed full of how to rebuild all this stuff. They're having to generate all of this data, analyze it, and then apply it. And that just takes much longer. If you've been doing a thing for a long time, you do something else, and then you go back to the thing you've been doing a long time, it comes much more quickly the second time around. But this is really the first time around for Yamaha. And I feel for Quartararo. I'm with you. But he also strikes me, and this is interesting too, because we have the battle of the quotes that I found. He strikes me as a writer who is not someone who sits there and spends a lot of time thinking about the engineering and the physics and the technology. I think to Quartararo, the bike is either fast or it isn't. And if it isn't, he'll ride it as fast as he can. But at a certain point, he's just going to say, I want a fast bike and I don't really care about anything else. And so he said that. I think Rins has said some stuff about how frustrating it is to see maybe the potential, but not have the reality. Miller's like, oh no, I mean, this is actually great. It's so much better than the last bike. It turns in a lot better. I mean, yeah, we're way down on power. That's not all of it. We're way down on power and some other stuff. But fundamentally, the reason we made this switch to Miller, he can see the change and it's having been worth it. And so I don't really know what to make of it. I don't know if Yamaha can pull this off by the end of the season. I don't know how much development upgrade opportunities they have relative to the other teams. But if Miller is right about this and Yamaha, as you say, burns the midnight oil a bit, then maybe they do start to close that gap down a lot and very usefully going into next season for them.
I would love to see him crack that eureka moment, Trumpets, I must admit, but I just don't have the patience with it anymore.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, I think they've just been going at it so long, and you say about them obviously turning in the right direction. Their bike's meant to be the best turning bike there ever was, really, at times. So they need to follow a bit of their bike characteristic and turn and follow that path and go as quick as they can to get back on the grid with them.
Yeah, it's tricky because they've got a hot prospect this year. Of obviously Toprak Razgatlioglu. I'm not going to bother trying to say that again. Let's just call him Toprak from now. So Toprak coming in, and he has been struggling, and it seems very doom and gloom. I feel a bit sorry for Toprak because he was doing Marquez things in Superbikes, and it was pretty crazy. We've been so excited to see Toprak in, and he's pretty much last. Him and sort of Diogo Moreira, who's a rookie on a tricky Honda, can't blame it, but he's pretty much last. And Toprak said he's been struggling with the Mitchell in front. He's got no feeling, and is struggling with his Yamaha. And Quartararo's furious with it. Rins is damaged. Danny, like, we thought Toprak was going to be good. It looks like he's in for a painful first season in MotoGP.
Yeah, as I said on the last one, I hadn't really heard much of him before coming to MotoGP, so I went and watched his highlights, funny enough, to try and get up to speed, see what he was all about.
Yeah, he's mega.
Boy, has he got some highlights. He's got a Rossi pass in the last corner at Catalonia was the first one I watched, which was a great battle with Batista, I think it was. So, yeah, he's got some amazing highlights. Looks a real talented rider. But one thing I did hear earlier was about he's struggling with the lean angles as well. Like he was following Miller and he's seen how low Miller could go, and it was kind of okay, so I can lean the bike over even more. So I think Miller's there trying to be big brother to him at the minute to get him along.
Yeah. And that's something I think Miller will be exceptionally good at. And you want your crew chief to be really good at bringing someone in. But let's be very clear about this. The Yamaha is a problem for Miller, for Rins, for Quartararo. The Michelin is going to be the problem for a Toprak. He's been riding those lovely, sweet, delicate Pirellis that do just what a rider wants when they want them to. And now he's on the Michelins. And the reason Yamaha signed him was not to do well this season, but to have someone who they knew was really good and really knew the Michelin rubber next season. Now, if I wanted to put on my tinfoil hat, I'd be like, where is the safest place for this rider this season? Why, yes, at the very, very back. Thank you so much. Plus, he's a big guy, so the loss of power is going to affect him worse because he's just carrying more mass on the bike to begin with. It's also going to make the aero a bit more tricky compared to the size of the other riders for whom it was mostly designed. So, yeah, I know his agent may not be this way, but if I was Yamaha, I'd be like, look, my friend, we're paying you an enormous sum of money to please just ride around safely at the back, figure out how this works at your own speed. Next season, you'll have your Pirelli tires, and our bike will be a ton better because we'll have had a whole year to figure out how this all works.
That's an interesting theory. He is a very tall guy, and to the point that he couldn't use the rear aero on the bike because he was too tall. So they've had to make quite a few ergonomic changes on the bike to try and fit it in so he can still use the rear aero. So he's at a massive disadvantage, and he is really, really struggling. But we want them to do well. As Danny said loads, we want Yamaha back. Rins has barely been faster than Toprak, but it's looking a bit doom and gloom. But remember, last year, let's not forget, this is the special hard casing, heat-resistant casing tyre that they use it only here and in Austria, I believe, maybe in Indonesia as well. And the Yamaha's really struggled with this tyre. I know it was the inline 4 last year, but they really struggled with it. And Quartararo was a bit all at sea at the start of the season last year, and Miller was faster than him, which has been the same this season, really. So let's see how it plays out over the next couple of races. Let's move on to KTM, shall we? A bit stealth, a bit meh. We kind of want to see him right up the front because Acosta is so exciting. But Matt, we've had obviously Maverick Vinales returning. Unfortunately, they lost him pretty much midway through last year at Saxon Ring because he was the rider that's dragged them out of the development lost hole they were in. How's it looking for them this year?
What is it the Magic 8 Ball says? The forecast is mixed. I don't know. So the good, Acosta seems much happier with the overall performance of the bike. It seems much, it has a bit more manners, I guess you would say. The bad, he also feels like Ducati has utter domination and Aprilia is far ahead of them. So the question for KTM, given all that they've tried to do here, is have they brought the bike to a point where it's absolute peaks, circuits where it's best, where it suits the rider best, will bring them podiums? Because by the end of last season, they really did have a top 5 bike with Acosta on it, almost every race. And to my memory, a lot of that was really down to how they used the tires in the Grand Prix. If the inerter has solved that problem for them, a mass damper, I guess, whatever, has solved that problem for them enough, if they figured it out enough, then maybe at the good tracks, maybe with a little bit of luck, maybe we see Acosta with that win, maybe we see a few more podiums. So that's the positive side for KTM. And yeah, I don't really know from testing because it's testing.
KTM are a funny one, aren't they? Because like you say, other than Acosta, the news isn't really very good when you look around it. I mean, Binder and Bastianini are a bit missing, really, so they're going to have a struggle to the season, see how they get on. I think Maverick, the jury's out. I think I've looked around a lot of news outlets, podcasts, etc., and everybody says the same thing with Maverick. If the real Maverick turns up, then boy, are we in for something special. But most likely, you know, Mav's going to do his usual bit and remain curious through the season. But Acosta's looking good. I think we all want to see the kid do well. Could this be the season he gets to win? Let's see if he can do it at one of the tracks on the calendar.
Now, see, I did listen to your podcast last week, and somebody mentioned, was it Mav and Jorge Lorenzo working?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm curious to see how that turns out across the course of a season. But yeah, you're right. If the Coda Mav shows up, which is the first race I was like, oh, that's why everybody rates him. Because up until then, that was 2 seasons ago, I think. It's like, yeah, if he's there more often, then great. But always for him, it's the development across the season that he really seems to be. If he can ride the bike, everybody can ride the bike. So that's also kind of like an important thing he does that may not get enough value because we watch the races only.
Yeah, it's sorting out the enigma, which is his mind and his motivation. And as you say, Jorge Lorenzo, they've been grinding. If you've seen anything on Instagram or the social medias, they have been standing out in like -0 degrees, rainy, horrible, cold racetracks most of the winter, grinding away on skills. And so hopefully that will benefit Mav and he'll come back on. So talking about enigmas, let's move on to our final team then, Honda. I think we all expected a little bit more from Honda to set some headline times because they finished so strong last year, podiums last year. But again, this time, if we look back to last year then, guys, like Honda were completely nowhere and really, really gone. So surely, Matt, that's an improvement this year over last year.
Well, yeah. Yeah, if at testing you're better off now than you were last year, then you've already done well because everybody tries to make a step or multiple steps across the season. But I did write down like my headline, my little note from reading all the stories and just catching up with stuff was like, where's my magic gone? Where is it gone? It's not that they're terrible. It's that they had this momentum and they were coming on and they had the big Zarco win. And even when they didn't ultimately place well, you saw the pace, you saw the bike. Where did that go? And I have a fear, a tiny fear, which I hope is wrong, but I'm going to say the forbidden words F1. We all know that Honda has done bad things in F1. And my fear is, what if they have grabbed some people to help out over there for a short while? And if that's the case, then maybe we will see them come on a bit later. The other thing is solutions in drawers. They had a lot. Have they run out of drawers to look in for solutions?
I must admit, though, I was quite impressed with Honda last season. I thought there was, for me anyway, I thought there was non-existent in 24. Last season, noticed them a lot more. Like you say, Zarco had his win at Le Mans. Yes, it was in, really bad wet weather conditions, but I think when you look through the races, they were certainly more noticeable on the TV. Marini was getting some solid results. Didn't he have quite a good solid top 10 at one of the races, weren't it? Was it Marini? I
And
think
Mourinho had a
looking back.
few of them, especially after
Yeah.
smashing himself up, and then
Yeah,
there's a couple of podiums, I think, from Mir back end of last season. So they were actually looking. They come on really, really quick. You were absent back end of last season,
Well,
Danny.
yeah, to be fair, there was that. But yeah, I'm quite impressed with Honda. I must admit, I think they're not setting the world alight, but I think little steps, consistently, I think they're moving in the right direction. I mean, disappointing they've not made more of an impact in the testing, but yeah, I certainly think this season they can continue to grow and at the minute beat that Yamaha Honda battle. What we all want. Please come back.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm remembering about Honda is they do have a habit of just not bringing anything until they're certain it's absolutely going to work. So there could be a lot of stuff they did in testing, and they're just going to take it away until they're very, very, very happy with it, and then it'll show up, and suddenly the bike will just be that much better. So I guess that is also a possibility that had sort of eluded my brain earlier.
Yeah, they're looking pretty solid actually. I think they're 7th and 8th fastest race sim times that we've got from the test in the mid-30s, and they're both Marini and Mir very, very close to each other there. So I th- I think they might be in stealth mode. I'm going to reiterate my prediction from last week was I think these could be the dark horse this year. I think they could get better and better and better. And Marc Marquez has got his ear pretty close to the ground, and he knows. And he was the one who was giving Diogo Moreira, our rookie this year, a big nudge, wink, wink, take that Honda ride. That Honda ride is going to come good for 2027. So it'd be really interesting to see how Honda do this year. And they have actually been outsourcing. You mentioned they might be sending engineers to the F1 project, their doomed F1 project, but they've actually started employing people outside. They've got the old KTM engine guy they've tried to bring in to try to find them a few more horsepowers. So it's so they're opening their doors, and it's amazing. So it'll be really interesting to see what Honda do. But I think one thing that is for sure, and we can definitely say, is that it's a salivating prospect. The race is going to come up. We are only a few days away, and we absolutely cannot wait. We will be back very soon on Monday with our race review. So it should release for Tuesday evening or Tuesday morning, ready for your commute. And we hope you will be along for the ride with us for the whole season. Thank you for listening. As always, we've been Mr. Epic's MotoGP, and we will catch you for the race review next week. Cheers.